perspective here. And with that point, I'd also like to introduce another guest who has joined us, Professor Moiz Hussain, who is the Chief Executive at the Institute of Mind Sciences and the creator of the Fourth Dimension. Thank you so much, sir, for joining us. So while we're talking about perspective here, something that I noticed your work talks about is the power of imagination. Can you tell us about that?
The human mind has two amazing abilities, and according to one of the research by a gentleman called Jose Silva in the early 40s, he found out that geniuses have two powerful faculties. One is visualization and one is imagination. If a person is able to visualize events that have passed, especially the ones that have been good for him or her, in colors, then that ability helps him to imagine much better. Now, imagination is a faculty which quite strangely sometimes has nothing to do with the past. For example, people have imagined things which never existed within the environment. Neither they've heard about it, neither they've seen it, nor they've touched it, felt it, smelled it. And yet they were able to imagine something which eventually over a period of time came into physical existence. So this faculty of the mind is responsible for all new developments, new research, breakthroughs in science, medical science, and everything that we see around in our life, from a cell phone to a rocket to a satellite, everything is based on human imagination. A couple of years back, I remember when I was a child, we used to have a series called Star Trek on television. And in that Star Trek, they used to have something which at that time people didn't understand. And they thought this was all foolish, like a cell phone and a Twitter and a laptop. But then eventually what the human can conceive and believe it can achieve. This is the power of human imagination.
Wow. So, Professor Hussain, something that you're talking about is thinking and then bringing that thing into existence, into reality. And related to that, I have a question related to the law of attraction. And many books have been written on this. I want to ask about your take on it.
Okay, the law of attraction is a recent find, a couple of 4 to 5 years back ago. The Holy Quran talks about it 1400 years back ago. In one of the verses of the Holy Quran, Allah says that whatever you think, I'll give it to you. It's called Guman. The word is Guman. So if a person is able to think something persistently with feelings and faith, somehow he's able to materialize that. So that is the law of attraction. But there are certain requisites which are required for that law to work. A lot of people think most of the time, but they never get what they want or what they think. There are two elements which are required. Number one is faith in a higher reality, in things that happen in our life. And the second is feeling. If you have appropriate feeling, as if what you want has already been achieved. Normally people tend to think in the future. When you think about something in the future, it always remains in the future. It never occurs. But if you tend to think that it is happening right now, you are using it, you are driving a car, you got the money, you got health, whatever it is, then somehow, because your brain cannot distinguish between real and unreal. For example, if you found of a particular kind of a food, and if you close your eyes and imagine that food is in front of you, think about the aroma, the taste, the color, you start getting gastric juices in your stomach, although the food is not present there. So the brain cannot distinguish whether you are imagining it or it's really there. Using that to our advantages, we create certain images in our mind of something that hasn't come or hasn't appeared. Yet we believe that it has already happened. The moment we start believing it has happened, it actually begins to happen. That is the law of attraction.
Okay, so that was a great explanation there, Professor. Something also that you've talked about in your work is how the brain should be geared towards a solution-oriented approach. What can you tell us about that?
See, first of all, we need to, as masses, we need to understand that we focus more on problems. The more you focus on problems, one of the principles of the mind is that whatever you focus on becomes larger, becomes bigger. So we focus on problems. All the time we're talking about problems. Because we talk about problems, the problems tend to increase. We never have been taught to think about solutions. So if you think about solution or the way out, then the solution will come to it easily. So one thing that we need to remember and understand, let's focus on solutions. Talk less about problems. We all have problems. Problems are a part of life. Every problem helps us to become more stronger, more better. Every failure leads us to more success. people need to understand this. So let's start focusing on solutions. How can I get rid of this? How can I achieve this? What is stopping me? What can I do? Some of these questions, if put forward to a mind, and if a person starts writing answers to these questions, the chances are he will find a solution.
Yes. And on that very important point, Professor Hussain, I also want to link this to Mr. Baloch's real life example. So throughout your life, do you think that you were focusing a solution-oriented approach? Were you focusing less on the problem and more towards how to get on with your life?
I think I'll start off with the philosophy of less or more, I think. I think, in my opinion, the word less is more powerful than more, because you see, less driving, more exercise, more walking, less words, more actions, and less anger and more laughter. So linking up to my story, when I just want to add up one experience. When I opened my eyes, there was, in the hospital, there was darkness everywhere. So at that moment, there was a battle going on between my mind and my heart, actually. My mind was saying that, showing me the reality: you are finished, everything is finished, you are no more, you have nothing to left in your life. But at the same moment, my heart was, with me, and he was saying that, you see, nothing has been finished, you have to show more willpower, you should be determined enough, we can overcome this fear, we can overcome this problem. At the end of the day, my heart won from my mind. And I came to the conclusion that when you are working with your mind, your heart is like a second to this your mind, and it adds up to the energy to your mind. So I think after that, what I did was that I told you already that I took the decision in 5 minutes that, okay, so this thing has happened to me, now I have to move ahead, that's all. I don't have to weep and all that stuff and all that, because I could hear all that people who were around me, all relatives, they were weeping and all that stuff, but I was quite normal. I said to myself, okay, now I have taken the decision, I will never give up, I have to move ahead. I will challenge myself, whatever I will do, I will never, never, ever give up. That's
an amazing ethic that you're talking about, Mr. Baloch. And with that, I want to take my next question back to Professor Hussain. So what Mr. Baloch was talking about was a distinction between the mind and the heart, separating what your brain is telling you, what you might be thinking is the more practical way of looking at something, but something that is very deep within your heart. Now, this can go in a negative way and in a positive way. How can we ensure that there is harmony between the two, so for positive outcomes to emerge?
First of all, let's understand, basically what we say as a heart is actually the mind. In Greek, the mind is also known as the soul. So what the gentleman was saying was something that was coming out of his mind, not the brain. The brain works on the basis of information, prior information, and processes information. So if you don't have something in your life, then the brain thinks about nothing in your life. So it gets depressed, it creates certain changes in the brain chemicals, and a person feels depressed. Now, to be able to understand how these two work, first of all, if a person is grateful, he lives his life with gratitude, it is the heart's way or the mind way. The more gratitude a person has in his life, the more he is able to balance between what he has and what he doesn't have. And it is the balance that is required. For example, a life in which relationships are given importance, more important than work, self-hygiene, self-assessment, self-realization, self-introspection, self-actualization also needs to be given due time. How many of us ever sit down for a few minutes a day with our eyes closed and think about how the day was passed and what have I done today and what was left to be done? We don't do that. We're too involved in what is going around us. So a bit of time to ourselves. One of my teachers used to say that it's important that you, for a few minutes every day, go and meet yourself. We never meet ourselves. We meet a lot of things. We meet people. We see television. We read newspaper. We see news. But how many of us really go and meet ourselves? So I think the balance that we're talking about is take out time and meet yourself.
Thank you so much, Professor Moiz Hussain.